Adam H. Phillips is the managing director of Techstars Baltimore AI Health, where he looks for early stage health tech ventures to fund and grow alongside the network partners at Johns Hopkins and CareFirst. Adam also led two other Techstars accelerators, DC JPM and Equitech, where he invested in nearly 70 companies, health tech, biotech, cybersecurity, fintech. He is the founding managing director at MoxE, where he built an impact fund. He's also the founder of AthletesInnovate, a former senior attorney and director of innovation at USDOT, the Department of Transportation, and an adjunct professor. He holds a BA in psychology, an MA in history, and a Juris Doctorate. And he's also a personal friend and mentor of mine. I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful you're here. Adam, welcome to Hustle and Grace.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be on.
I'm so glad you're here. Okay, let's just start with we were just talking like before, like offline, about how do you even tell your story when you've lived like nine lives? So share with us a little bit about how you get from lawyer to investor. There's also a big passion for sports in your work. Just give us an overview of your sort of career journey
Sure.
as to how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. And it's great to be on, Hillary. I love Hillary. It's we get to do fun stuff together. We play music together, and hopefully you've talked about your own voice and musical talent on this. Have you talked about that?
No, I
Because
don't think so.
okay, I was gonna be the first to break that to the audience. So you're a fantastic musician. It's fun to play with you.
Oh, thanks.
Um, so yeah, it's a probably the short answer to that story, to that question is restlessness. There's a certain amount of like just, okay, looking around that I like to do it took me years, I mean, into my probably mid 20s, late 20s to accept about myself. I am and actually embrace as a strength, not think of it as like a negative. I'm the child of immigrants, and my parents come from the Cayman Islands and Jamaica. And so probably the only thing they wanted me to be when I grew up was something that was, as most immigrants to the United States, like something that was steady. They just wanted like get a job and be safe. And so that was like the way I grew up thinking I needed to find something that was, consistent and steady and made good money, and you sort of like
Sure.
incrementally forward.
People
So
always need lawyers, Adam.
well, that was the option, right? Like doctors, lawyers, and then like probably, the really extreme version of it was something like a postal worker. They're like, you can always work at the post office because government workers probably won't get fired, and we always need the post office.
Right, right, right.
About email, but yeah, so consistency or like just really safety was kind of the mantra for me growing up from my parents. And God love them. I think they were on the right track. No, no shade to them at all. But it took me until my kind of mid 20s, late 20s to figure out like there was a restlessness about me that like was positive. It wasn't just that I got bored with boring jobs or whatever. It's that like I had ambition that was sort of boiling that I wasn't really, I wasn't honoring, frankly. I wasn't giving it the chance to kind of run and see where it went. No question that something like that, of course, can be destructive or bad, and make your life, convoluted. Probably when I was married with two children and wanted to move across the country, my wife would have thought it was that, but it turned into a good move for us. But yeah, there was a certain restlessness about me that, I needed to honor and figure out kind of where it went. So all that to say, like I started with being a teacher, to be honest. My father was a teacher, and I went to be a teacher, then got really connected to like the passion side of me wanted to be in politics. And I don't know, young Adam was still altruistic and maybe thought hopeful about politics. But that ended up going to law school and becoming a lawyer. And then, yeah, kind of had the breakout moment when I decided it was time to be in entrepreneurship. So,
Amazing.
yeah.
Amazing. Yeah, some of that resonates with me. I think my parents also wanted me to go on a safe path, but also I think that they had two kids and the first kid was very clearly like a fit for like the lawyer trajectory, and I was always like super, I don't know, creative and right brain. And I liked English and I liked writing and I liked playing guitar and those things.
Mhm.
And so they were like, okay, like maybe like a safe job for you would be like journalism or like
Right,
communications. And so
right.
I did get a degree in that for sort of similar reasons. But it's like when you like a lot of different things, and which is my way of my version of that's the way that I've explained the
Mm.
restlessness that I think that you felt too.
Yeah.
And like you find those things, like
Yep.
you forge your own path sooner or later. And I definitely did as well. So one really cool thing about what you do now is you advise, are they would you call them growth stage or early stage sort of
Early stage.
startups? Okay,
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that because I'm familiar with Techstars and I know some people in our audience are, but some people aren't.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
can you explain a little bit about what you do now?
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I love the framing of you like a lot of things because I've changed my focus of how I live to like initially I sort of, and this is professionally, not too metaphysically. I don't account for my weaknesses. I focus on my strengths. And I think that framing of how you're talking about, like I do like a lot of things and I can find facility pretty quickly. Not that I'm an expert right away, but if I find facility in something, it hooks me. So I love following my strengths that way too. Okay.
Yeah.
Techstars. What does Techstars do? We are one of probably two or three, sorry for all the rest of them, early stage venture capital accelerators that, that are really, kind of the conduits for getting most of the sort of just off the napkin ideas, but that are capable of being venture backable into the kind of bloodstream of venture capital. So our job is to resource or find and then resource the companies that they've written the idea down, they've talked to their friend, they put their first prototype together, maybe they talked to their first three customers and got one of them on. It's our job to find them as early as possible at that stage, give them money, give them resources, put them in our network, and get them out there and stand them up and get them ready to be venture backable and kind of grow at the rate they want to grow if they're interested in that path. So that's what we do. Like it's a very I love my favorite job ever, and I go back to this all the time was I was a seventh grade basketball coach, unsuspecting because I applied for the job, the assistant coach job at the eighth grade boys team, became the assistant on seventh grade girls. Best job I've ever had. Best job
Wow.
still. I love my work at Techstars, but still the best job. Hubble Middle School in Illinois. And because it taught me so much about like what I loved, what I really enjoyed, regardless of the activity, was watching people go from point A to point B
Mm,
and saying like, oh, I think they can go all the way to C. Let's see if we can get them there. Like watching the progression and then seeing it happen right in front of me. It was so vital. It was so exciting. I mean, those girls they are still the archetypes in my brain of if I do something right, I see it in like, oh, well, it was like what I did with, this kid. So that's a great job. But Techstars is similar, to be honest. I get to work with companies that are very early, very nascent. They definitely have had some early success, but maybe don't have the tools or the personal network or kind of the sense of what it means to be a growth stage or to get to a growth stage, and kind of grow through some of the early growing pains of being a startup. So that's my job. Yeah.
so okay, I think a lot of us have probably been sitting around like maybe having a beer with friends and being like, I have a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
You know, don't you guys think this is brilliant too? How do you know that you've got a good idea if you what if you're if it's just an idea in your head or maybe you're beginning to start something, like how do you know that this is something
Mhm.
worth pursuing?
It's a great question. And I'm glad you asked it. So the first thing to do is exactly what you did in your hypothetical is say it to somebody else. You got to get it out of your head. Because honestly, everything is great in your own head. Like we all sound like professional singers in the shower. But like you got to get out of the shower, turn the water off, listen closely, like say it to somebody else. So that's step one. And then step two, if you sort of pass that sniff test, is to start to talk to people who have seen, or have talked to a lot of people about this, because reps is really the way that I have built the judgment that I thought I had early on. So I thought I was a smart person. I thought I was, and I am relatively smart, whatever. I knew I was a lawyer. I had all sorts of experience and all that is great. But the way that I could tell really good ideas from good ideas, because it's typically not terrible ideas, it's
Sure.
typically really good from good, is having seen them before. So for instance, there are certain categories of apps, companies, whatever, that I see over and over and over and over and
Really?
over. And I get these emails literally every day on my email, on my LinkedIn inbox, on Twitter. And almost every single one of them starts with the like, we're changing the game, where nobody's ever seen this before. And there's categories, and people don't realize like there's certain things, and I won't say them because if it's your idea, you'll feel bad. But just recognize that when you talk to, you've got it out of your head, that's good. Talk to a friend. But when you talk to somebody who's in the game, like who does this every day, they have a different version of, first of all, they have their own criteria for what they're looking for. So know what that is. But they also have a ton of like the screening criteria that they've seen that will really help you hone down whether or not you have something or not. And then like the final secret is honestly, if you want to build a business, you can't take it too personally. You have to figure out like my founders have to figure out, okay, I fell in love with my idea. I fell in love with the problem. I want to solve it. Maybe I fell in love though with a problem that the market doesn't care about.
Mhm.
So the question becomes, do you want to stay in love with the thing you care about, or do you want to build a business? And to build a business, you need the market to care about it.
Yeah.
So that's where you start to push the business from the inside. It's all the way inside. You got to push it out of you, and then take care of the business differently than just your own feelings. So it's a process. It's not easy. It's almost like more emotional than it is intellectual. But it's talk to initially get it out of your head, and then talk to people who've been in the game. That helps.
Is it, can you figure it out fairly quickly if the market cares about it? Because I think in some situations, it's like, well,
Yeah.
if the market only knew that this existed and then they would want it, like, how do
Right.
you figure that out?
That's a great question. So the point, this short answer is not very quickly, but more quickly than you think.
Okay.
But you have to be focused on the right thing. So for instance, like if you have this idea again, like I created this gum. I love this gum. I'm not sponsored by icebreakers, but I should be. Dang it, icebreakers. Talk to Hillary, get her some money, get me some money. Let's do this. I created this gum, right? And I love it. It's delicious. It tastes like grapes, like it's grapes that you can blow bubbles with, and there's sparkles. It's great. But nobody knows about it because everyone's thinking about their own stuff. The whole
Yeah.
world is full of people thinking about their own stuff and thinking they just created something too that if only the world knew about, right? So everyone's focused on themselves. So one of the huge challenges is you may have a great idea that the world is not ready to pay attention to. So if you have that, you don't have a business yet.
Yeah.
You don't have it, but you have to figure that out first. So it's all about like being honest about the fact that I love this thing, but if I don't have a market for it, it's not a business. And then running experiments to figure out if people love this thing enough to have a market. You got to run experiments early on. The mantra, Peter Thiel, I think it's Thiel that says, do things that don't scale is really to me about that. It's you cannot harden a system around the thing you love before you know other people care about it. Because what you're doing really is hardening your feelings about it, hardening your sense of what it is, and then you push it out there into the market and nobody cares. And then
Yeah.
you're hurt, you feel
Oh,
sad, and you're like, and it's tough. It is tough. But like what you did was you built a system around it. You hardened the system before you knew anybody cared. You got to figure out if people care first. That's the things that don't scale. Talk to people, interview them, call them, offer it, walk it to their office and see if like it resonates. Do you want to chew
right.
this gum? Here's a free sample. Um,
Yes.
so yeah.
Oh, that's so on point. I do a little bit of career coaching, which is super fun. It's usually people who are creative and want to have some sort of like transition point. Like they
Yeah.
want to start doing their life's work or they want to get paid for their creativity or whatever. And something that I always sort of go back to is the Japanese framework, the Ikigai. Are you familiar with
Mhm.
this?
I've heard about it. Yeah.
It's basically like a Venn diagram of like take what you like, take what you're
Mhm.
good at, and take what like the world actually needs and will pay you for, and
Yeah.
find the center of that.
Right.
Because if you like it and you're good at it, but nobody needs it, well, then that's a hobby, which is great too.
Which is
Like
wonderful. Yeah.
we all need hobbies, we all
Right.
need passion projects and things like that. But whether it's just like your business of one, like your career,
Mhm.
or a bigger business, you have to figure out if people actually need it and want to trade you money for it, right?
Right. Yeah. And you can hang, like you said, the hobbies are fantastic. Everybody should have them. But if you're hanging like professional hopes, money making hopes and all that, and even scaling hopes, that's another level. Like, because you may find a market that's just small and
Right.
can't hang scale hopes on a small market. You just can't scale, things that are for like people that are left-handed and, are missing a nail on their pointer finger. Like, you can't hang a market on that. Those people exist, but you can't hang a market on that. So yeah, it's interesting.
So with Techstars and really accelerators in general, like who or what kind of business is a really good fit for that?
Mm,
Or maybe for yours in particular. I mean, however broad you want to
yeah.
go with answering the question.
Yeah, and it is a slightly more, this is my general theory on things, is everything is simpler and like infinitely more complicated than you think.
Mm,
And the answer to this is that
cool.
the short answer for all of venture capital, and this is I think, well, actually, venture capital has a really interesting history. It started almost in like military hardware, really difficult science projects, things that you couldn't, nobody would ever spend money on. And so we're going to put money in because we think the upside is so huge. So it kind of started in research labs in Boston and robotics and things like that. But it eventually became, and it's real like opus, I think, for venture capital is SaaS. Like it's really, really easy to scale SaaS because it's just bits and bytes that you put on servers and computers. And so every time you spread it out to a different customer, you may be adding customer support for every 50 customers, but you don't add staff, you don't add
Yeah.
buildings, you don't add, so SaaS is like that's the heartbeat of why venture capital became so popular in the last 30 years.
And that's software as a service
Sorry,
for
yes,
anybody who
software as a
might not
service.
know.
Yes,
Yeah. So
that's
an
right.
example of
So,
that is like
yeah, I want
Mailchimp,
to do
HubSpot.
exactly. Yeah, PayPal, like there's a million. Zoom is a SaaS. We're on a Zoom.
Yeah.
Anything where I just have to, both of us probably have to have something on our computer,
Yeah.
but it enables an interaction or a transmission or whatever it is, which is great.
Yeah.
And our lives are dominated by SaaS. It's fantastic. But the reality is there's a floor. There is a floor for consideration, but there's tons of ways you can make money in venture capital. So you could theoretically, and it would be hard to do this, but we still do hardware sometimes, which is expensive. But and we don't give enough money early on because we're taking, lots and lots of bets. But if we have the right connections to scale somebody to the next hardware investor, and my network allows it, and we've got the capacity to mentor that, that's great. I'll take a hardware. It's harder, but we'll do it. I take folks in health tech, I take folks in fintech. Those are kind of three big ones in the DC area, DC Baltimore area. We do those really well. I think also any reg tech or gov tech is like, again, like if you're going to do reg tech or gov tech, you're coming here anyway.
Right.
So we take those. We also, I think, anything that is even like tech enabled is potential, but it drops down the list because if you're tech enabled, it means like tech is only part of your solution and you're still going to have to scale in ways that are expensive. So my question is never, can we do it at all? It's, does it cross the threshold, the bottom, which is, I can see this business going to the point that it can return, my LP's money. So, because with Techstars, it's not Adam's money that I'm investing, it's somebody else's money. So my job is to make sure their money grows. So,
Isn't that fun? I
yeah.
would think that's fun. So kind of like shifting gears just a little bit, thinking about like the various points of, transition along your career, the different things that you've done. You've also raised three girls with your lovely wife.
Yeah.
Talk to me about, I mean, balance is like a four-letter word, but like, how have you, what have been your values and like how you've approached determining how to spend your time and sort of, yeah, investing time in your family while also making some big career pivots and like still having like big dreams. Like you're not like anywhere near like the downward coast of your career. Like there's still things to be launched in your future.
Oh,
So talk
for
to me
sure.
about all of that.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. And I think I think it was a shift around when I started to take kind of my strengths more seriously, and we already had little kids, and I knew it was something I sort of took for granted I was going to get married and have kids. Like when I was young, it didn't it didn't seem like a question even. Like I knew I wanted it, so that was important to me. I knew that was like kind of part of how I maybe how I grew up, and just but part of what I embraced early. I assumed that would be the case. And so when we started having kids, it wasn't a surprise, but it was a like it was newly like serious. It became like, oh
Yeah.
wait, like these are human beings.
Yeah.
And you know, we had been married, I think almost 5 years before we started having kids. So it was great to have been married. We loved, you know, being together, but we still had flexibility before we had kids,
Oh, yeah.
you know, because we got married kind of young, and we were still like we'd still play volleyball with other people and soccer, and you know, we had flexibility. But when we started having kids, things got more real, and but in a great way. Like it, you know, it wasn't like it was serious. It's not like it didn't feel like a burden, but it was a great burden that I wanted to take on. And so like that started me shifting in terms of like, okay, well, let me project all the way out. Like, what does it look like at the end? And what do I really, you know, care about? Who's going to be around the, you know, the bed when I'm dying? Who's going to like show up at the funeral and all that kind of
That's
thing?
real. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because there's no question to me that like I am ambitious, and I want to be ambitious, and I want to be ambitious till the end in my career. But I also really want to be ambitious more than that in how I like raise my family and raise my kids. Like
Yeah.
I want my grandkids. I remember a moment. I was traveling for work actually, and this was one of the shifts when I was like I jumped out into entrepreneurship. I joined this startup, and it was venture back, a lot of pressure, crazy roller coaster ride. The people who were, you know, kind of the money people were just riding us because we were we weren't doing great in a moment. We were in one of those moments where we're not doing great. So I'd flown across the country to do. I went to Seattle to do some sales, and we had a big school district that we might have sold, and I was going to try to make it happen. I was on the way to Seattle. Was I on the way? No, I was on the way back. So I'd had a trip, and it was great. We made the sale and all that, but I'd been there for 4 days. On day 3 and 4 were really, it was like rainy, kind of depressing. I was staying at this crappy little motel, and I was like, "Ugh, this kind of sucks." And then I was in the airport on the way back. I'd flown from Seattle to Chicago, and I was in Chicago, and I saw this grand, what I assumed, and you know, I'm sure my brain was foggy, but it looked like a grandfather with one of his grandkids,
Mm.
just walking through like the food court in the airport. And they were walking together normally, you know, talking, like chatting. They sat down to have food. The grandkid went to go get the food, and then came back, and then they chatted again, and then they just walked off. And the whole time I just watched them because I was on a layover from coming back from some junky, you know, business trip, and stopping in Chicago O'Hare, and you know, sitting at the, and I was like, I want that. Like that's
Mm.
what I want. That is like, that's the, you know, they talk about the big rocks. That immediately was like something I valued. I was like, oh, that's what I want. I want to have such a good relationship with my kids that like they want their kids to be around me. And I
Yeah.
want to have time to be around those kids and help raise them and be a, you know, a value add to them. And that they want to hang with you in the airport and be like, you know, be that resource forever.
Yeah.
Because if you really want to like, if you really want to know what you can do, the only thing you can actually make change in is yourself. And then after that, you just have influence, and your influence gets weaker every step out, is what it kind of came to me. So I can influence my, you know, my own wife. We'll be married till the end, but I can only influence her. She is another whole person. Our
Right.
kids, we grew them up, you know, we raised them, but we can only influence them at this point. And they'll know at a certain point, like that gets less and less and less. So like the ability to be able to be in the lives of my grandkids was immediately important to me. Like it just rang like a bell, that picture in my
Wow.
head. And I was like, I want that. So I'm not going to stop being ambitious about everything else, but I'm also going to be ambitious about that. Like I'm going to be enough in their lives. I'm going to work at it. And it doesn't mean I make every game. It doesn't mean I make every you know, parent teacher meeting and all that kind of thing. But I miss a whole lot of things in my professional side because that's more important. All that I do try to make actually all their games because I care about that a lot. I do try to make all their concerts. I do try to make all that. But when
Yeah.
I do sit, I regret it. I call. I ask for score updates. You know, like it's important to me. It's a priority. I'm ambitious about my family. I want my grandkids to want to be around me. So I'm competitive on that side too, and it's only competitive with me. So, it's not like it doesn't translate to like I'm trying to beat anybody, but I'm just
Yeah.
trying to beat the apathy of, every day it does seem like you're getting external accolades from your work. And great, I want those. I'm ambitious about those, but I care more about the fact that like my teenage girls still come and talk to me about stuff. I still get texts from them. I still, I hear about like the things that are happening. I know they're friends, you know what I mean? I know the updates. That I'm competitive about that too. I care about that a lot. That matters more to me.
Oh, I love that. And I think that that picture of like that grandpa in
Yeah.
the airport with the grandkid, that's such a helpful like touch point to say like, okay, if that's where I want to be,
Yep.
you know, decades from now, how do I reverse engineer that? Like, what do I do today to get there then? Oh, that's so
100%.
good. That's so
Yeah.
good.
I follow these kids around. I'm going to be there,
Yeah.
they're
Yeah.
going to be tired of me and I'm going to be a value add. I'm like, and I tell them, I'm like, I just want to stay on the team. I want
Oh,
to be on the team because that's the reality. Like, you don't need to keep your parents on the team. Nobody needs to keep you around at a certain point. Again, it's a circle of one that you can actually change. So I'm going to do everything I can to stay on the team. So that's the goal.
yeah. I love that. Well, as as a person who's in the phase of life right now where I depend on my parents a lot to
Yeah.
help with my kids and to like to even today, like one of them is going to pick up one from kindergarten this afternoon and the other is taking me and my 3-year-old to Costco and we're
Hmm.
going to spend some time together.
Yeah.
Like that's such a gift. And I think, and I know that you've been there as well. So
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Just like one or two more questions, and
Sure.
we might just have to do a part two one day because just like wisdom of Adam Phillips. But um, you, as a person who works a lot and you do have other values, what
Yeah.
do you do to avoid burnout? Like I know that you have a job that there's always some email to read, something to do, people are vying for your attention. I've been in the room with you at DC Startup Week, and it's like a celebrity has entered the building, like everybody wants a piece of you. So how do you avoid
Right.
the burnout that must come from being such a sought after person and having a workload that is intense?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. And it's first of all, you have to get comfortable disappointing people, to be
Ooh.
honest. I get a lot of emails I don't answer, and I get a lot that I do have to answer, but I get a lot I don't. I try to be polite when I can, but polite is not as important to me as done. Like if I'm getting through my emails and well, I mean, for instance, literally the last 2 weeks have been very busy because it's the beginning of our program with DC. We're getting through the DC program. We're getting started in the DC program, so it's super important to upload essentially these founders to our process. We're downloading a lot of stuff, but we're uploading them emotionally, physically. Like we're bringing them in. It's a ton of stuff we have to do. So I have been very, very busy. So I'm not touching my emails until like a certain point at night, and I don't touch my emails until I'm done coming home. And if there's a game, we go to the game, and I don't touch my emails. Or actually, I do touch my emails on like timeouts if the kids aren't watching. But after, I don't want them to watch me in the stands with my emails. I want them to see me, So, but like I'll do it after midnight or something, or I'll do it at 11 or whatever, and then I'll stop at a certain point, and I'm just like, it can't keep going.
Yeah.
There are certain train rides. I'd sometimes take trains too on purpose because I need to sit in silence for like, 20 minutes, 30
Yeah.
minutes, something. Just no music in my ears, but my earphones are in so nobody talks to me and just like quiet because I'm an introvert, to be honest. Like I don't get energized over time with people. I get it feels like it's pulled out of me, but I love doing it and I'm fairly good at it. And so it seems like I'm an extrovert, but I'm not. Like I need space. And so that's one thing, like silence. I walk a lot as well. That's important to me to like be outside and not with people. Sometimes I do calls when I walk because it's efficient, but it's really nice to just have that space. And then I also have a rule. To me, I figure out what the optional things are in my job. There are some things that are not optional. These 2 weeks are not really optional. I have to work, I have to go hard. But the optional things are things like happy hours. Like there's a million happy hours I could go to every night of the
Always.
week.
Mhm.
So if I'm going, I have a rule, one person on purpose, one person by serendipity, and then I leave. Most of I say no to, but I go one person on purpose when I go, one person by serendipity, and then I leave because it's not as important to me to be. It's important to me to be a figure in the area. You have to. That's industry, but that is second to what I'm trying to get done at home. It's second to what I'm trying to get done with the founders. Like that is not as important. I know what I bring to the table. I'm comfortable with it. And I'm also comfortable that people will be sometimes angry or disappointed that I don't bring that thing to their thing. And they're being kind by asking, but I have to save these resources. I only have, certain strengths I can do. I'm going to put them in the places where they're going to be most effective. So yeah, that's a lot of answers, but
That's so good. I'm so glad you brought up the one person on purpose, one person
oh yeah.
serendipity, and then you leave. Oh,
And
I
I
love
leave.
that.
That's
He
it.
just leaves, guys.
Just leave.
One
Yeah.
last question.
Yeah.
Book recommendation for maybe someone.
Mm.
No, I'm not going to qualify that. Give us a book recommendation and just tell us why.
Watership Down is my all-time favorite book. I've read it many times. I would read Watership Down if I were you. You gotta read it. It's just, I feel like it cracked open something in me when I was a kid that kept cracking open. I love Watership Down. So that's always a good like book recommendation I can say. If you're interested in venture capital, Venture Deals is a great book. Excuse me. I would look at Venture Deals. It's kind of expensive. Well, it's like $40, but it is worth it if you're going into venture capital or interested in venture capital. That will
Worth the
like,
investment, you might say.
yeah, that's right. Well done. It will give you the lay of the land and it will tell you, oh, I don't want to do this, or yes, I think I can do this, and it'll help. I would say that for sure. Recently, what have I read? Oh, I've started The Three Body Problem. That's been really interesting. I couldn't resist also watching the Netflix, and then the Netflix thankfully made me want to read the book more. So The Three Body Problem is interesting too. I haven't finished it, but
I
yeah.
gotta catch up on that. I'm behind on my Netflix, Adam.
Fair enough.
Where can people find you online that want to connect?
Ah, good question. So I think I'm on LinkedIn. I know I'm on LinkedIn. Let me see what my thing is. Adam H. Phillips, I believe is how you find me. Is that right?
That sounds right.
I think that's right. And then I think I'm the same on Twitter or X, whatever we're going to call it. I think I'm also Adam H. Phillips there.
Adam H. Phillips. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course. This was
Fantastic.
fun. Yes. Good to talk to you, Hillary.
You too.